Hello everyone. I hope that you've engaged with your feedback and you're well underway for assignment 2. And remember, if you want to ask a question about assignment 2 or get some clarification, you can email me or you can put a question up on discussion board so we can share the responses. I am waiting for those questions on discussion board, so I really look forward to being able to have a conversation about them. This week, what I thought I would do is not so much a hack or give you some video hints or give you an extra resource, but actually do a kind of worked example of how a researcher thinks about aligning research questions with methodology. And I'm going to put this document up that you're seeing now, so you'll be able to bring it up and look at it if you want to replay this video. So this is about the VR school study. I'll put a link to the website so you can have a look at it. And if you go to the resources on the website, there's also the papers that came out of the study, so the research papers that came out of the study. But what I'd like to do is share some of the thinking around how we designed our methodology for that study and how we aligned our methods and our instruments to the research questions. I know I keep harping on about alignment, but it's really important that these things are logical and are logically connected through the design. So you've read the literature review that I conducted as part of the VR school study, where I highlighted some of the gaps in the literature. So you've read that earlier. And now the study's evolved where we're thinking about what we're actually going to do in schools and what we're going to do in high school classes in this instance. So there's a number of research questions that I'll get to in a moment. But basically, I'll just run down to these now. The research questions were, what happens when students and teachers use immersive virtual reality for learning? How can curriculum be tailored to use the affordances or the properties of the technology, immersive virtual reality, and how can we assess if it enhances learning, including collaboration? So that's a bit about its impact. What are the opportunities and challenges of using the latest immersive virtual reality technology in low-income school communities? How do students and teachers experience immersive virtual reality in their classrooms? And given the developmental stages of learners, how can we use this type of technology safely and ethically in schools? So these were the questions we came up with in our research project. It was a participatory research project, so these questions were devised by both the university researchers and the teachers in this case. So I'll come back to the right-hand column in a minute to show you how they match the research questions in just a moment, but let me go back up to the table and give you a sense of some of the methods we use. So it was a mixed method study. We use qualitative and quantitative methods in our study, and I often use mixed methods, particularly when the type of study or inquiry that we're undertaking is complex and we want to get some measures as well as some nuanced insights or some deep dives into particular phenomena. So we're really interested in this study to use some mixed methods because we're interested both in measurement and in more experiential aspects, and you can see that from the research questions. So we used in this study, and I'll match these up to the research questions in a minute, which is the exciting bit. We used in our study semi-structured interviews and focus groups with students and teachers, and we had to develop a new interview schedule or focus group schedules for these because there wasn't an existing instrument, an existing schedule we could draw on. We had to, so we analysed documents. We did some document analysis, particularly of student work samples and their work in immersive virtual reality, captured through video, but also their work outside of immersive virtual reality, particularly their design and planning work and teacher curriculum material. Qualitatively, we did observations, so I did some video recording by hand, and we did screen capture where we actually were able to video what was on the screen when kids were in VR, and from there we inductively coded this. In other words, we didn't come with an existing coding schedule or an existing set of things that we really want to look at. We just want to see what happened and develop our codes from there, develop our interpretation from there. It's definitely qualitative. And also in observations, I recorded as a researcher on site my general observations about being in the field or in the classroom with the students and teachers, and I kept a field diary where inductive analysis was carried out on that. So just some really interesting things we might want to follow up later. For instance, if there was some gender behaviour patterns, or if there was kind of technical issues with the setup of the equipment, or if there was a lot of disruption to lessons or attendance because there were excursions and sports carnivals and all the things that go on in schools. So some ethnographic observations. Quantitatively, we did a survey. So we had a pre-study survey. So we wanted to look at cyber sickness. Can you get were the participants likely to get sick from this, because we want to screen them out if they were, and prior experience of virtual reality. So we get some sort of baseline about the participants or the students' experience of virtual reality. And we amended an existing survey. So it was an existing cyber sickness survey which we added some questions to. Observations from video, both handheld video and screen capture, computer screen capture, which we deductively coded. So we did both an inductive coding just to see what came out of it, what phenomena we could see, but also a deductive coding using an existing framework on metacognitive behaviour. So there was existing observational framework developed out of Cambridge University, and we used that to code the data to see how often metacognitive behaviour was evident. And we also developed a new on-task, off-task observational coding frame for the study. We wanted to see if it had impact on learning, so we did pre and post-test knowledge. So it was an in-class test before the use of VR and then after. And because we wanted to see if there was any correlation between whether the virtual reality had a positive effect on knowledge acquisition or learning as knowledge acquisition, we had a quasi-experimental design. In other words, we had a VR group and a control group or a non-VR group. So some year 9 classes were in the VR group and some weren't. But they ordered the pre and the post test because we wanted to look at correlation in terms of improvement in knowledge. And we also used an existing instrument, an existing survey called the Motivation and Engagement Scale, the MES, with our quasi-experimental design with both the groups who got VR and the groups that didn't. But we did amend that slightly to put some open-ended questions so that students could express their feelings about what they thought about learning for science in this case. So let's match these methods up now to our research questions. So the first research question, what happens when students and teachers use immersive virtual reality for learning? Well, we had qualitative and quantitative data collected for that. So qualitatively, we did semi-structured interviews because we wanted to know what happens, what did it feel like, what was it like to work with this technology with both teachers and students. And then we did observations which were qualitatively and quantitatively coded. So our observational data collected through handheld video and screen capture. We did inductive coding, so we coded as we kind of immersed ourselves in it, and we coded as we went for phenomena that we thought was emerging. And then we also did the deductive coding, which means that we applied a framework, an existing framework, in order to investigate metacognitive behaviour. So we used both qualitative and quantitative methods to explore that question. The next question, how can the curriculum be tailored to the use of the affordances of immersive virtual reality, which is just the properties that it has, and how can we assess if it enhances learning? Well, the issue really here is, what do we mean by enhancing learning? Do we mean knowledge acquisition, growth in 21st century skills, collaboration, metacognition? In particular, we're interested in knowledge acquisition, motivation, and collaboration. So we had quantitative measures there. So the quantitative measures were deductive coding of the video data, and then we set up our actual design so that we had this quasi-experimental design with a control group. One group that got the VR, one group that didn't. Did they learn more or not? And one group that got the VR, one group that didn't. I did VR. Was it more motivating? So we gave the students a motivation engagement survey before and after the unit of work using VR. And then we did some qualitative analysis of the video data and some student interviews to ask them what they thought about the curriculum. So they did the unit of work. What did they like about it? What didn't they? And what did they like about learning in VR? And what didn't they like? So qualitative as well. The opportunities and challenges of using the technology were mainly qualitative. We did some observation coding with so the video data we coded. We also asked students and teachers about that, particularly teachers about the opportunities and challenges because they had real insight. And then we drew also on some observations in our field notes around that. How did students and teachers experience immersive virtual reality? Well, experience gives you a bit of a hint that it would be qualitative methods, so semi-structured interviews and focus groups with our teachers. And often that would be on site as we could do it because we didn't want to disrupt student learning too much by taking them out of class again. And then about the developmental stages, so this is a question about ethics and safety. Well, we use a quantitative screening survey at the beginning to ascertain whether students were likely to get cybersick, which is a type of motion sickness. And we also asked students how they felt, what it was like to be in VR to learn, and whether they experienced any cyber sickness. And we also through our own observations, were able to build up quite a nuanced picture through the field notes and the video data and the interviews about what some of the safety and ethical issues were. So, hopefully, I'll let you go. You can go and have a look at this document. You can see the types of methods we've used, and you can see, hopefully, the alignment between the question and why logically we would use the method that we've chosen, the methodology we've chosen, the particular methods we've chosen, and the range of methods. Now, in your assignment, I don't expect you to come up with anything as complicated as this. I mean, this was a 2-year study with very experienced researchers on it and very experienced teachers, and this kind of process evolved over 6 months. This kind of study design evolved over 6 months. So it took lots of thinking with lots of heads and lots of experience to come up with this. But if you can just do a little bit of this, think about your question and really the type of approach you want to use, qualitative, quantitative, or both, and then the type of methods that relate to those approaches which would best help you answer the research question, which would best help you collect the data to analyse to answer the research question, then you're more than halfway there. Okay, so if you need me, I'm here. Just give me a yell, and I look forward to hearing about your thoughts and answering questions. Until next week. See ya.